The women use the rhythm of B's drum to teach the bride how to pleasure her husband. The fun and excitement is intoxicating. But Nyago also has a serious side. Girls are taught how to handle difficult husbands, how to stand firm through the trials of married life. As Zanzibaris step forward into their future, B is worried this old tradition will die with her.
When I am gone from this world, it will go, if no one is around to continue it.
But as long as the ritual remains relevant to modern women in Zanzibar, it seems sure to survive. Today is January the 12th. The president is on his way to celebrate a pivotal moment in the island's history. Half a century ago, African Zanzibaris seized power from the Arab-dominated government in a violent uprising. For thousands of spectators, this is a chance to see their armed forces in full display. For the president, it's a political opportunity. But the route to these Revolution Day festivities began over 300 years ago. In 1698, after a long history of trade with the island, Oman conquered Zanzibar and declared it an Arab state. Under Omani rule, the archipelago grew into a powerful commercial hub. Zanzibar's thriving ports and bustling bazaars were at the center of a vast international trade network. The Arabs grew rich and powerful off the profits of one commodity in particular: slaves. With Islam forbidding the enslavement of other Muslims, it was the Africans who were captured and sold as slave labor. Kept for long days in hot, cramped holding cells, many died before ever reaching their destination. Around the world, the clamor for abolition grew, but the island slave trade continued to flourish throughout the 1800s. At its height, 15,000 slaves a year were imported into Zanzibar. The Arab elite used African slaves to fuel an explosion in clove farming. Zanzibar became known around the world as the Spice Islands. Even after the trade was legally abolished in 1873, slavery continued on the islands for another generation. By the start of the 20th century, the archipelago was firmly divided along ethnic lines. Arabs remained the ruling elite. They possessed most of the land and wealth. By comparison, the Africans had little. Finally, racial tensions boiled over. On the 12th of January 1964, the African population turned against the Arabs in the government. revolutionaries went on the rampage. In a single day, 17,000 Arabs and other ethnic minorities were murdered.
On the day of the revolution, by 6 o'clock, the Sultan and his family had already fled in their ships. So many were murdered, just out of anger and hatred.
It was a genocide that went largely unreported around the world. After the horror, many of the surviving Arabs fled the island. Those who stayed, like Abdallah Nasser Abdallah, had their property confiscated and lived in daily fear. Even today, talking